Hi, I'm Kay Elizabeth, and I'm your host for Why Women. This is a new show that we've started because we wanted to look at issues for and about women. Sometimes we think, what is our purpose? Well, I went to a conference about 2 weeks ago, Yoruba conference, and they're thinking of the people in Yoruba, in Africa, is that mankind was made to come to the earth to bring good. I like that. It's not real complicated. We're here to bring more good to the earth. So today I have some guests who have come to bring more good, and they're going to talk to us about their program. It's with the YWCA. It's a sexual assault crisis program. They're going to tell us about their services, what they do, and how you can help. Our first guest is Sharon. Sharon Shelton. She's the manager of the Sexual Assault Crisis Unit. How long has it been there at the YWCA?
The program has been in existence for 15 years, close to 15 years.
I didn't know that. And why?
Well, certainly rape, sexual assault has been going on for way past 15 years, but 15 years ago, certainly the City of Compton, the YWCA, the police department, community advocates really knew that there was a need for an agency to exist to help survivors of sexual assault. Oftentimes, when people are victimized by an assault, they have nowhere to turn to, no one to talk to. So it has been really important for the past 15 years for someone to pick up the phone and for someone to be on the other end of that phone.
Yeah. This is good. Leticia, and feel free, we're just going to be chatting here. Leticia Vasquez, and you're the community outreach coordinator.
Right.
So you go out in the community to do education, to let people know about sexual assault?
Right, yes. Basically, I go out into the community and I talk about sexual assault issues. We visit the local high schools, which are in great need of education on sexual assault issues, especially because a lot of these women are at risk of being sexually assaulted.
High school students?
Oh yes, and also being victims of violent relationships.
One of the things you should know, Kay, is 1 in 4 girls are sexually assaulted by the time she reaches 18. So it's imperative that we are at the schools because we know that it's already a high population of survivors on the campus there. And it's really good for the community to know that we offer counseling services and intervention services, but we're also out there in the community doing prevention work as well.
Okay, but wait a minute. You're doing all this work with women, but who's doing the sexual assault? Who's doing the rape? I mean, what good is it to educate them?
Yeah. Our program is for survivors of sexual assault, and that can be women or men. And when we're out in the community, we talk to both groups. I think there was a time in the past where we did go to school campuses, and the teacher would say, here are the girls, the boys are in the gym. And we have demanded that the boys be in the classroom as well, side by side, because rape is not a women's issue. It's a community issue. Overwhelmingly, the rapists are men. And so if we had our choice who to talk to, we certainly need to talk to the males about sexual assault. So we want the students, both females and males in the classroom, to talk about this issue.
Okay.
On that point, when you ask who is the perpetrator, who is the rapist, because sexual assault and rape happens against young women, girls, and the perpetrators are usually people that we know, it's really difficult to talk about who the perpetrators are. The perpetrators typically are our uncles, our pastors, our fathers, our cousins, and like I said, it's very difficult to talk and address these issues, to a community that has a hard time with addressing the fact that the rapist a lot of times is a family member or someone that they've known. So it does make it more difficult.
So you're saying most of the time the rapist is somebody the woman knows?
Right.
Right. So all of these scary stories about people jumping out of bushes and being at the wrong place at the wrong time, is a smaller portion of the assaults than people who you know. Well, what can you do about that? I mean, are there any red flags that would tell me that I'm in the company of somebody who may sexually assault me?
Well, I think that that's one of the biggest myths that still is alive and well in our communities, that, you know, someone is going to jump out of a bush and sexually assault us. Red flags, I would say, for the most part, it's really important for us to really get to know the person that and the people that are around us. Okay, we really need to have more personalized relationships before we decide to, you know, go out on a date with someone. Mm-hmm. As parents, I think parents really need to monitor their youth, and if they're going to, you know, date as a group, or if they're going to go out, make sure that you know, their kids are not consuming, you know, an excessive amount of alcohol, because alcohol consumption does contribute to a higher incidence of sexual assaults among high school students. So there are a variety of things that that we can do as a community to reduce the incidents, or maybe not the actual incidents, but to reduce the likelihood of an assault happening.
Right. Let me jump in there, because as we talk about the man in the bush, so to speak, not to say that that won't happen, but you're certainly more likely to be assaulted by someone you know than by a stranger. And also, the community should know that we offer free self-defense classes at our agency. So I think that that's very important. As Leticia mentioned, the alcohol and the drugs, that we want to steer clear, you know, of those drugs and alcohol, because that can sort of, you know, add to the high risk factor.
Okay, tell me this. If I know someone and they verbally are abusive, would that, I mean, I'm not saying, oh, that you're a rapist because of this, but would you say it would be appropriate to stop it there?
That's a red flag.
So that it doesn't escalate.
Yeah. It's a red flag. If I call you out of your name every day, then it's more likely for me to abuse you, because I reduced you to an object. You know, your name is K, and that's what I should call you. But if I call you outside of your name, then it's more easy to sort of see you as an object and then abuse you. You know, so that's a red flag if you're with someone who constantly refers to you as some, you know, negative term. You know, it's unfortunately rapists do not go around with that label on their forehead, but that's certainly a red flag that people should be aware of.
You know, when you said that, it made me think of war. Here's why: because I don't really know this to be true, but my understanding is that they during the wars, like with Japan, they were calling them names, and to make anything to make them less human.
Exactly.
And then the same thing happens. The war, I guess is there a war between men and women?
I certainly think that there's a communication war. But I don't know if I would go as far as to say it's a war. There certainly needs to be more communication. I believe that women have the responsibility to say no and mean it. A lot of times women laugh and smile when they say no. At the same time, when men hear that no, it is their responsibility to accept that no and stay clear of that no. It's not the male's responsibility to talk the woman into having sex or forcing her to have sex, because no really means yes. No really does mean no.
Okay. Can a woman...
Can I just add a couple of things? When you talk about a war between the genders, I think it really scares a lot of people, because we're living, I think, in a time where, you know, women we as women are wanting to be, you know, equal in every sense to men, and I think that a lot of times, you know, men tend to feel intimidated and feel threatened. And I think that in an effort to not create a war, we need to learn how to understand one another and learn how to, you know, improve those communication lines, and you know, in order to alleviate that misperception that there's this gender war going on between males and females.
Okay. Well, can it be a woman's fault if she gets raped?
no more so than it's a person's fault walking down the street getting robbed. You know, that blame the victim mentality has certainly been around for a long time, and that is why agencies like ours exist. We are non-judgmental. You can call us up and we're not going to say, well, why were you on that particular corner at that time of night? No, we never see it as the victim's fault. We put the blame where it belongs, and that is with the perpetrator.
Okay. Now you said you've been
and maybe not the blame, but the responsibility.
Okay.
The responsibility lays upon the person that perpetrated the crime, and it's not the responsibility of the victim to take on that extra burden after she or he, because men are can be victimized also, to take on that burden of feeling that they caused the assault.
Okay. Now, you said you've been there 15 years.
Yes.
Have you helped? Is there more rape? Is there less rape?
Yeah, the numbers are about the same, and certainly I think lately we've been hearing about how the crime statistics, certainly in the United States, have decreased somewhat, but rape continues to be on the uprise, actually.
Really?
So even though I think we're talking about it more, it is still a crime. It's the crime that is more likely to be not reported by victims because they feel unable to disclose.
Okay. I have a cue. We're going to go to break, and we'll be back in a minute.
To be a mother, you must know these things. How to hold your baby, feed and care for your baby, but most important, how to be there for your baby. If you die while giving birth, you can't be there. And if you die, chances are your baby will too. So if you or someone you love is pregnant, see a healthcare worker and be prepared to take action if you see any of these signs: bleeding, severe headache or fever, if your waters break even a little, if your birth pains last more than a day, get to a healthcare worker immediately, because before you can hold and comfort and love, before you can care for your baby, you must first care for yourself. The Safe Motherhood Initiative, because our mothers are our future.
Hi, thanks for coming back. You know, during the break, Leticia, you were telling me about a law, Megan's Law, that you felt was real important that our audience know about. Could you explain that to me, what that is? It's a database?
Sure. In 1994, there was a piece of legislation that was passed, and it's called Megan's Law, and that required for those individuals that had been convicted of sex offenses to register with their local police departments once they were released from jail or from prison. So everyone has access to this database, to this computer base. You can go to your local police department, your sheriff's station. They have a computer out, usually it's in their lobby area, and you punch in your if you're interested in your particular area, then you punch in your zip code, and if you're interested in looking up a particular person, then you can go in there and punch in their name, and if they're a registered sex offender, then their picture and their information will come up.
Really?
Yes, and this information has been used in communities throughout the nation to find out exactly, who's registered and who's living in their neighborhood. Unfortunately, communities such as Compton and I don't think that we've used that resource to our advantage to really learn about those people that are living, in our community. But I would really encourage everyone to go to their local police department and just browse through the database and see who's registered.
Oh my
on
goodness,
that
that can be quite scary.
It is.
Yeah, I think it can be scary, which is, I think the information certainly needs to be available. And if anyone is sort of leery about that and wants a person to accompany you to the local police department, give us a call, because I think it can be frightening. I know we say that all of us know a rape survivor. If that person has disclosed the fact that they've been raped or not, we do know a rape survivor. But the scary part of that is, I think that we all know a rapist. So I think you can go to your local police department and find that information. It can be overwhelming. So I would advise anyone interested in that, give us a call.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I want you to now give your number, and exactly, we're located in Compton. The YWCA Sexual Assault Crisis Program is in Compton. Address?
1600 East Compton Boulevard. Our 24-hour hotline number is 310-764-1403.
Okay. And I want to get a picture of exactly what's going to happen when I call that number.
You will have a supportive person on the other end of that phone call. Oftentimes, survivors just want to talk about it, and it's very difficult if you're a family member or a friend to allow that person to talk about it because of the issues it brings up in us. But at the program, we're all certified, and we're a listening ear, so to speak. We have counseling services and support groups. We're non-judgmental. So we're going to be there to listen and not pass judgment.
Do I have to give you my name?
You do not have to give us your name. I think the other important issue is most people think that if they've been raped within the last month that they can give us a call. If you were raped last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and you have not talked about it, I think it would be good to give us a call.
Wow.
As we know, those issues linger on, and if we have not resolved those issues, they impact the way we handle our relationships, impact our relationship with our children. So that's why we're there.
Okay. Okay. So somebody can call just to have someone to talk to.
24 hours a day.
Okay. Now, what about if it just happened and I maybe have to go to the hospital? Is this what? Do you help that?
Those are some of the services that we provide also. If the assault just happened, I would recommend that you go directly, that you report the crime to your local police department, and they in turn will transport you and take you to the hospital. Don't take a shower, don't go home and bathe or anything like that. Just go directly to the police department or call the police. The police will go out and take you to the nearest hospital.
Okay.
That will
and
conduct
then you will
the
come
exam.
to the hospital?
Right.
No matter what time of the day?
No matter what time.
And what about if I know who it is, or I want to file charges and go to court and all that? Do you?
Well, all of that is taken care of by the police department. They're going to take the report and they'll ask you all those questions. But thereafter, if you decide that you are going to, if the district attorney picks up the case and you have to testify and you have to go to court, then we will provide accompaniment services as well. We will go to court, and there was also another piece of legislation that was passed a while ago, and it allows for the survivor to have an advocate in court by their side to provide support. So we will go out and do that as well.
I think it's real important, because sometimes the person who loves you the most might be the worst person to be there, because they're going through their own thing and maybe can't be as supportive to you as you might need at that time.
Right.
Yeah, it's difficult, and our services are not only for the survivor, but for the family members as well, because it can be very difficult for a mother to watch her child experience the trauma of sexual assault.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned something about United States. Rape is all over the world.
Oh, yes.
How does the United States fit in? Is there more rape here? Is there less? You know, we're supposed to be so far ahead of everybody.
I think it's difficult to really give an accurate measurement of where it's happening more, simply because it's such an underreported crime. So it would be really unfair for me to give any numbers. But I do have to say that that the U.S. has been more supportive in providing, the federal government as well as the state government has been more supportive in providing funds for agencies such as ours to provide the services that we provide, and to be able to educate women and men about the issues.
Okay. All right, there was a question. I'm trying to listen to you real good, and so my question is leaving me. But
I do want to add that it has been currently it's been discussed as a human rights issue, and the United Nations is talking about having sanctions against certain countries in the Middle East, specifically because of the lack of attention that those countries are giving to women that are being victimized by men in wars and at home.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Now that helps me with my question, because I'm thinking a lot of people have come from different countries and now live here, and their standards were different. Like, for example, if I'm married to a man, and is it possible, since I'm his wife, that he could rape me? Could that be rape?
It's very possible. It is indeed rape. And I don't think we really focus on that issue. When we talk about the domestic violence issue of that, we look at the bruises, but not an assault, a sexual assault. And it's only been a crime in the United States since the early 80s. But that's spousal rape, and it is indeed against the law for a husband to rape his wife.
Okay. Now, I'm just going by something that I saw on television, but my understanding is that if I report having been raped and I have to go to a court, that they're not going to bring up all my back history.
Yeah.
Not that there's a lot of history there. But I'm just saying, this is sometimes, sometimes people don't do things because of old laws or the way they used to be. And that's why I'm bringing this up now, because people need to know that that's changed. Am I correct?
Right.
That they're not allowed to bring up. That is not the point. If I'm a prostitute, I can still go to court if somebody raped me.
Right, and that sort of evidence is not admissible in court. Unfortunately, I've seen instances where attorneys have alluded very subtly to certain behaviors that may have quote-unquote provoked an assault, and that still happens. And unfortunately, that can have an effect on how the jury decides to render, their verdict. But yeah, it's not admissible. But again, it still goes on.
Yeah. But there have been laws that have passed in recent years to try to omit the history of the survivors.
What about the history of the perpetrator? Is that admissible in court?
Yeah, as it relates to other assaults, it is. I did want to say that the program works with the DA's office in the Los Angeles area and in Compton, so that it is our goal to be there and work together to provide services for the survivor.
Okay. Well, this is important to know. The one thing I want to know, I talked with a young woman who I was so impressed with, and she told me that she was raped when she was 13 years old, but that she became sexually active many years later. She separated that rape with her sexual activity, and that seemed to be a very powerful thing for a young girl to feel that way, to know that her sexuality did not start until she started it,
Exactly.
until she made that choice. So we're going to take another break, and we'll be back in just a minute.
I feel free again.
I don't have to ask for permission to go out.
My kids and I can go to the mall when we want. I'm free. I can do the things that make me happy. Now I can see my family again. I feel good about myself.
You and your children deserve a violence-free life. If you are in an abusive relationship, seek help. Call 800-799-SAFE.
You don't have to be afraid anymore.
Being threatened or beaten, you don't have to stay in that situation. It's scary to leave, but if you stay, you could end up like me. I went to a battered women's shelter, and they helped me start the long road of rebuilding my life. There is life after domestic violence.
We're going to wrap up now. The key thing I want us to do now is to make sure that the public knows how they can contact you and what services you provide.
Again, I want to give our 24-hour hotline number, and that is 310-764-1403. We offer counseling services, support groups, accompaniment to hospitals, police stations, and court, community education, and we offer a volunteer certification training, which is very important for the community to know.
Okay.
We offer self-defense classes also every 3 months.
Okay. Thank you. We
Thank
just
you.
had a minute to do that. I want to invite all of you to have the courage to care.